Story Nest presents My Deepest Regrets, Episode 9 Finale. Ruby sat on the floor, her body trembling as tears streamed down her face. Memories bombarded her mind, each one more painful than the last. The realization hit her like a thunderbolt: she had killed her mother. The guilt was overwhelming. Why hadn't she listened to her mother? Now she was gone, and it was all her fault. Desperate to escape the anguish, Ruby bolted to her room. She locked the door behind her and threw herself onto the bed, her sobs echoing through the house. Her cries were so loud that passers-by could hear her agony. In the living room, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Mr. Koomson and his daughter Chloe sat in silence. Chloe clutched a diary in her hands, the weight of its contents pressing down on her. An hour dragged by, and Ruby was still locked away in her room, her sobs unabated. Mr. Koomson couldn't stand it any longer. He picked up the phone and called Reverend Leonard, explaining the situation in a voice heavy with distress. Within the hour, Reverend Leonard arrived at the house. He asked to speak with the Menses, the family at the heart of the unfolding drama. When the Menses arrived, Mr. Koomson relayed the shocking revelation to them. Mr. Mensa, visibly shaken, bowed his head and sighed deeply. He pulled out a handkerchief and wiped away a tear. "I didn't know this secret would cause such a tragic situation for you," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "It has been many years, and we thought it had been resolved." Reverend Leonard turned to Charles Mensa, the young man entangled in the spiritual turmoil. "Do you want to be free from this possession?" he asked gently. Charles, his face pale and drawn, nodded emphatically. "Yes, I want to be free." Just then, Ruby emerged from her room, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "No," she said firmly, her voice breaking. "I cannot go through with the marriage. How can I be happy knowing I'm the reason my mother is dead?" Reverend Leonard stepped forward, his expression kind but resolute. "Ruby, it can be resolved. If you still love Charles and if the Menses are willing to cooperate, we can break this curse." Mr. Koomson, torn between his daughter's pain and the hope for her future, asked for time to think it over. The Menses left, their hearts heavy with uncertainty. Days passed, filled with prayer and reflection. Finally, Mr. Koomson made his decision. He gave his consent for the marriage, on the condition that the spiritual ties to the marine world be severed. The Menses agreed and undertook a period of fasting and prayer to break the vows that had bound Charles. Reverend Leonard and his congregation gathered to perform the deliverance. It was a powerful ceremony, filled with fervent prayers and spiritual warfare. In the end, Charles was freed from the dark possession that had haunted him. Months later, Ruby and Charles stood at the altar, their hearts filled with hope and love. They exchanged vows, promising to support each other through whatever challenges lay ahead. Their union was blessed, and soon they welcomed two beautiful children into the world: Stella, named after Ruby's late mother, and Joel, a symbol of new beginnings. Despite the rocky road that led them to this point, Ruby and Charles built a life filled with joy and love. They honored the memory of Ruby's mother by cherishing each moment and supporting one another through every trial. The shadows of the past had finally been lifted, making way for a bright and promising future. The end. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Solace Lisa Tales.